Hello and welcome to another edition of Florida Sportsman Action Spotter Podcast. I'm Captain Rick Riles. Hey, we got something special planned tonight. We're going to start out where we always do over in Paradise and check in and see what's happening in Nosara, Costa Rica with Craig Sutton. But then we're going to check in with Ellen Peel of the Billfish Foundation. It's one of my favorite people. She knows an awful lot about billfish. I tell you what, I'm seeing a lot of pictures on Facebook of sailfish being boated, held up for pictures, and then being released. I want you guys to hear what she has to say about that. There's been some studies done, and it sounds like we may be doing too much, kind of like greeting a marathon runner at the end of his race and putting a plastic bag over his head when we take those fish out of the water. And then we'll start our trip around the state. We're going to start it a little further south than normal after we talk to Ellen this evening. We'll check in right away with Jonathan Earhart down in Stewart, because I understand the sail fishing is picked up a little bit down there, and they got some good mahi fishing. Then we'll work our way down through the Keys, where I hear tell that Nick Stancic has boated another monster sword, and then up the West Coast and out the Panhandle, finding out what this cold weather has done to our fishing. So grab a drink, have a seat, and let's take a trip around Florida and find out what's happening out on the water. Tonight's podcast, just like all our podcasts, are brought to you each and every week by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Tournament Master Chum, the best chum on earth. By Nosara Paradise Fishing, your dream vacation. And by Young Boats. You want the finest in flat spay and offshore hybrids? You need to check out youngboats.com. Okay, we'll get our night started off where we always get it started, over in Paradise. Check in with the perpetrator of all great things fishy. That would be one Craig Sutton. Craig, how are you?
I'm good, Captain Ricky. How you doing today?
Good. Have they perpetrated any fish in Costa Rica this week?
Yeah, I tell you, the one that kind of stands out in my mind is we had like, I guess, 5 or 6 trips that fished on the bottom, and they're using a conventional rig, and they're doing it purposely to catch the congrios. And I know a lot of people don't know what a congrio is.
I do not.
It's a snake fish.
Ooh.
It's got kind of a snake tail on it with a fish head.
I can tell already I don't like it.
Yeah, I know they look wicked, but we're catching just good numbers of them, some really good ones, and they're absolutely one of the best tasting fish in the ocean.
Really?
They taste just like a lobster. I mean, identical to a lobster.
How about
you
that?
cannot tell the difference outside the texture of meat. And so the clients just go crazy when they catch them. And for some reason, there was a big run of them last week. I mean, we had a couple of them that were close to 20 pounds for a 5-6 pound congrio. Is a big fish.
That's a big, ugly snake.
It is.
Yep.
Yeah, Alex had one that was 30 inches long. It was a good sized fish, but they're just crazy good. And we're still catching the small yellowfin, a lot of them inshore. The Wonder got on one pod last week and got, half dozen of the 15 pounders. And, of course, lots and lots of sailfish.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had a real nice marlin. The marlin bites kind of slowed up last week, but still, the sailfish are taking over. There's many sailfish as you want out there right now.
People here in Florida need to understand that when you're talking about sailfish and Nosara, you're talking about 100-pound fish.
Oh yeah, and then some,
then
some. We'll get a school of them. They'll be 150, close to 200 pounders, and it's like they all will be the same size for about 3 or 4 or 5 days, sometimes a week and a half. But the mahi have gotten consistent. We haven't had any monsters in the last 2 weeks, but we've had a bunch of them a little over 30, that's still a nice fish.
It's a great fish. It's better than a nice fish. I've said it before. I'll say it again. God didn't make a better animal than a 30-pound mahi. I mean, I
know it's a sport fishing. It's a charter-boat string.
Yep.
They fight good. They're very, very visual. They're a beautiful animal, and they eat great, and they grow fast.
And they make a great picture. And I mean, they're just, Craig, you know what I like best about them? They're stupid. I can catch them. I mean, they ain't rocket science. When they're hungry, they ain't rocket scientists, buddy.
Well, they're smart enough to know not to stay away from my hook. I haven't caught a decent one in a couple years. I mean, I really haven't. I haven't broken that 45-pound mark in a while. So
Oh, no, I
I've
don't
had
think
two or
anybody
three of them
has.
right at the boat, but I've lost a couple of them right there at the gaff shot. Whatever,
Yeah,
it's all good. It's fishing.
we don't get them like we used to. There's no doubt about that, and nobody can dispute that. And I think it's been brought to my attention, and I think it's probably right that a lot of it has nothing to do with us. Mahi are true ocean pelagics, and they travel down to Central America, South America, make the whole route, and there's a lot of hooks for them to get by before they get back up here.
Yeah, and I hear the guys are getting a lot of them too right now. And
But they're
not
small.
monsters either,
Yeah,
but
no.
they're small fish.
You-
Yeah. But I'm looking forward to the March run up here where we get the real big ones. But in Costa, see, now we'll keep getting these 30s and 35s and 40s, and then about May, once the season changes and the current changes, which that's the trigger of the season change to fall, we'll start getting them 50-pounders. And year before last, I think we had 5 or 6 that were in that 50-pound plus range.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then plus along with, several 10 over 200, which that's a nice fish. For every one you catch, you lose 10 of them.
Yeah, that's some great fish. Craigie, we appreciate it. As always, sounds like it's heating up down in Costa Rica. We'll talk with you next week if that's okay.
Sounds good to me, Ricky.
All right, this is a real pleasure for me. This is one of my absolute favorite people in the industry. It's incredible to me because she's 31, I think, and she's been in charge of the Billfish Foundation for at least it seems like the last 20 years that I've been dealing with her. So I'm not sure how they started her working that young, but somehow they did. Ellen Peel is joining us tonight because I've got some questions about stuff I'm seeing on Facebook. Are you with us, Ellen?
I'm with you, Rick, and it's always a great pleasure to be with you and your listeners. It was the age factor all was through modern math. Remember that term?
Yes, I do remember that. That's right. Okay. That's right. Well, we're calling it that you started at 11, whether you really did or not.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I'm all for you. But it's great to have you on the phone and have me have an opportunity to discuss with your anglers what's going on.
Well, I'm seeing a lot of social posts that are bothering me, and I wanted to talk to you about it. Our guys up here in Jacksonville are taking great care. They're all very concerned about our big trout, and they're taking great care to keep those trout in the water, do everything they should, use their bogey grip, take the hooks out, resuscitate them, send them on their way. But then I look on Facebook, and we've got a real strong run of sailfish going on in Florida right now with the wintertime here. I'm seeing an awful lot of fish held up in cockpits of boats for hero pictures is what I call them, and then released back overboard. Ellen, we got a lot of sharks. I don't like that.
No. I mean, the shark issue is a major headache. And with the National Marine Fisheries Service, unfortunately, sharks are right behind panda bears. If there were such things as swimming panda bears,
Yep.
I'm not kidding. Everyone at National Marine Fisheries Service in the HMS office loves sharks, and their conservation has been successful. I'll be criticized by some, I know, but I think it has gone too far. The number of fish, billfish, and I'm sure many other species that are being whacked once they're on the line by sharks is really, that's contributing to a possible decline in sailfish, to the fishing opportunities, and therefore to the economics that support the fishery. The other issue you mentioned, taking sailfish out of the water. It's great to hear the wonderful report you gave on the nearshore fish. I think you said a trout. Those same steps are needed in handling sailfish. Now, we all get excited, when we want a hero shot, but that's not needed. The longer you take a fish out of the water, not only for exposure to the oxygen and the weight on the organs, percent of mortality increases. If you're under 5 minutes, one science report said, you've got a chance for them to survive, but they have to be resuscitated. And with the sharks, it's doubly, it's a problem. And on top of all of that, under federal law, it is illegal to take a billfish out of the water, whether it's for a photo or anything else, unless you're taking that fish home.
Good.
So we are the most responsible group of anglers in the world. And, we should keep demonstrating that we can keep a sailfish fishery here by our contributions of releasing and not taking out of the water.
Ellen, I got to tell you a couple things. First off, from spending 50 years chasing sailfish, there's never been more than there are right now, and I'm so happy about that. I mean, there's a huge number. The amount that show up in South Florida in the summertime to spawn is fantastic, and we'll bring one to the boat, and it'll have 3 or 4 more with them, and it makes me so happy. But I talked with my buddy Captain Patrick Price. I don't know if you know Pat Price or not. That
Yeah.
runs a boat out of Stewart. In his charter business, he has lost 9 sailfish that he knows of that he had hooked up to sharks. One in like 1986 and one in 1999 and 7 last year.
Yes, we all have heard the stories, of black marlin being attacked off of Australia, and then it started on blue marlin in Virgin Islands, and got some pictures of that when we had satellite tags being deployed and cameras. But you're right, everything is being taken. Now, we had a long meeting with National Marine Fisheries Service, but, they just don't get it. I say they have no fish sense.
I've said that before.
No, I mean, there many of them, are well-intended, hard-working bureaucrats.
Mhm.
However, if you don't have any time on a boat, they could be managing widgets.
Yep.
But the fact that there are businesses dependent upon healthy stocks of fish, and I would say most of those businesses are not dependent upon sharks. Now,
Right.
we want the ecosystem to be balanced and biodiversity and all of that. However, the reports I see on, posts every day, how many got off. So people are going to start saying, honey, let's go fish somewhere else. The shark's going to take our catch.
Mm-hmm. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there was a study done on white marlin with satellite tags, and if the fish was not brought in the boat and was resuscitated alongside and sent on his way with the satellite tag, whether the circle hook is taken out or the leader is clipped, didn't seem to make a difference, that a huge number of those fish survive, but the fish that
Right.
they slid through the transom door, even
Right.
on a wet deck, and put the satellite tag in, did not do as well. Am I correct about that?
You're absolutely correct. We all know fish have slime. I'm sure there's a scientific name for that slime, but it's slime on their bodies, which is a protective coating. And then if you get them out of the water, the organs, are accustomed to being, buoyant
Right.
in the water. Then, you bring them up. It's like having a person held underwater for 7 minutes and get a picture of them.
Right.
And we
Right.
go, oh, okay, that's all right. I love that human. Let me bring it back on shore. Well, it's probably dead by then. I can't brag on U.S. anglers enough. And I did so when I was at the international negotiations. And most nations don't think we really release billfish. And that's why we've had to negotiate stridently in the past to get even the 250 limit of marlin. But absolutely, it's true. Don't let your ego get ahead of your brain.
Good point. Good point.
Well, we all get excited, when we have a fish on it, but we really need to think and focus and be as professional as we can. Bring it alongside the boat. Get a picture of the fish alongside the boat. Have the angler lean over, but please resuscitate that fish. While the shark issue is terrible, we don't want to add to what the sharks are doing.
Exactly.
Because, the businesses are dependent upon those fish being in the water.
That's right. That's right. And all we can do to keep them there is what we should be doing. I heard it put really well one time that taking one out of the water is just like meeting somebody at the end of the Boston Marathon and putting a plastic bag over their head. I mean,
Yes, exactly. Great analogy.
Yep. You think about it. They've just given everything they've got in an effort to put away. So quick, let's cut off their oxygen supply. That's not right.
And the adrenaline rush it gives us as anglers, that fish, that adrenaline is for them, it's probably even higher than for us. The lactic acid can build up and kill them. All the more reason to take good time in resuscitating. If you really want to keep fishing and it's really important to you and you want the jobs to stay in the recreational fishing industry, don't end up killing the fish. It may take it 2 days or 30 minutes to die.
Let me tell you what, my doggone 12-year-old grandson with a GoPro on a GoPro
Yeah.
stick is dynamite at billfish pictures. And
Really? Well,
yes,
some.
he is wonderful with it. Now, he may or may not have decided to jump in one time when we had one close to the boat, and he may have come back walking on water saying, "Grandpa, there's a really big shark under me."
That's right. And don't go in now, particularly. It's just too dangerous.
I just bought him a longer stick. Now, you said something to me which really hit home, because I have always been big on, when I've got kids on the boat, dipping up these pieces of sargassum and shaking out what's in them. And
Right.
I have had baby sailfish fall out of sargassum before on numerous occasions. And now you're saying you need pictures of little sailfish, right?
Oh, absolutely. All billfish, all juvenile billfish, and certainly sargassum is one of the primary habitats for the little boogers. And so, and what an exciting thing to do with children on board is to get a net, pull it up, take some pictures, and then let it go. We like the lat lawn so that, it will help the scientists. If certain sizes are all reported off of Stewart and bigger sizes off of, Miami, or whichever direction it goes, it gives indications of age and growth based on changes in sizes. Now, what's a catch-22 is we all are frustrated because the science isn't as advanced for billfish as it is for the commercially landed species. And that's because even though there are tons of billfish landed by other nations, it's because, if you land a ton of fish, you got a ton of samples. Now, we don't want the rule to change that there ever be a U.S. commercial fishing just to get more samples. It would advance the science, but that's not the way to do it. That's burning down the barn to get rid of the rats. But anyone has an opportunity to take pictures of little billfish, it would be so helpful to send it to us.
Okay. I'm glad you got that out there, and I hope our listeners take that to heart. Now, when you say little, you're talking about newly born.
Yeah, larvae size.
An
inch. Now, even an 8-inch fish, anything that looks to be a juvenile will help, because in the ideal world, the scientists would like to have samples of each of the billfish species at each age, each year of their age, which, there's no way we know it's the same fish. But, if you got a 6-inch, a 7-inch, a 13-inch, it all starts adding up and gives the scientists a picture of trend sizes that they can then start doing more research with. And, billfish are completely almost dependent upon anglers. TBF was founded by anglers who realized the U.S. government was not interested enough in billfish to give any priority to them. And so that's when Mr. Rockefeller and Tim Choate and Don Tyson and about 60 others got together and said, it's up to us, guys. And that's why the organization was formed. And so we really need to do all we can to protect that resource upon which so many jobs depend. The National Marine Fisheries Service still trying to open the closed zones off the east coast of Florida, South Carolina, and 2 in the Gulf of Mexico. After we met with congressional liaisons and Assistant Secretary of Commerce and a few others last year, and this was a phone conference call, obviously because of COVID, the government, National Marine Fisheries Service, decided to do more research. And so they're doing some analysis on commercial longline bycatch areas within the zone. Now, like I said, they're not anglers. Right. They're thinking that they can identify where most of that bycatch was taken at different times and maybe allow longliners to come back in there those times when it was low. I just don't think fish are going to be that precise. You may have, like you said, a lot off of Stewart, but there may also be a fair number just south of there, just north. So I really, really, really need all of you to be prepared to go on our website. We have a pre-drafted letter to your members on Capitol Hill, both chambers. And once they announce what they're going to do, and they said early 2021, all you got to do is click on the letter, lift the paragraph, put it in a send box, put your name on it, and put in your address so the computer knows which representatives are yours, and it will be sent. And we need to overwhelm the Hill with support saying, don't open this. These zones have been closed for 20 years. Only swordfish have recovered, and that's wonderful. But the zone was closed to protect all billfish,
right,
yellowfin, all tunas, and a whole lot of other species. So why open it up just because swordfish has recovered? The protections need to stay in place. So I'm counting on you all. Please, go to our website or sign up for the free e-news on our homepage. So, and I really hope you join. I can't emphasize that enough, how important it is to support TBF, because we're the only voice out there for you, you're fishing the fish, and the only one doing a lot of the research.
Well, I got to tell you, I developed a very valuable friendship with a gentleman that has since passed, and he was one of the high-line longliners. He was one of the best of the best back in the 80s when it was so good, late 70s, early 80s. And he said the number of juvenile swords and white marlin in particular, he said, we didn't catch a lot of sailfish because we fished deeper. He said, we didn't run into that many sails. He said, we honestly didn't kill that many blue marlin because we couldn't keep them, and they were generally strong enough to carry the gear around until we could get to them and release them. He said the number of juvenile swordfish and white marlin that they killed on the long line made him get out of the business. He could not handle it personally.
And there are, like in any business, there are good individual participants, and some have left longlining and have picked up buoy gear fishing.
Mm-hmm. Right.
In part because they said they don't want to be seen as part of an industry that public comments and images of them is embarrassing to them.
Well,
they say they want fish in the water, but there are some that, like the ones wanting to open up the closed zone, they could give a rat, what, if they go in and take every fish out of that zone.
But here's what I want the National Marine Fisheries Service to understand. On the open sea, compliance with your regulations is largely voluntary for the recreational sector. Okay?
Right.
For us to support it, you've got to show us something to believe in. I'm so furious with the South Atlantic Council because we've got these ridiculous red snapper regulations, and you're asking me to support the system when I know that it's wrong. Okay? I know that reopening the Florida Straits and the East Coast into longlining again is the wrong thing to do. Quit shoving stuff down my throat that I don't want to support.
Part of the rationale, it has finally come out, why NIMS is pushing opening the zones. Wilbur Ross, the current Secretary of Commerce,
right?
He's from, I believe, Arkansas, but he's a farming agriculture type guy, and he's been most upset that the U.S. seafood trade deficit is somewhere around 14 to 16 million, and that we have a great deal of empathy for that. However, so what he is planning and what NIMS is pushing is approving a lot of marine aquaculture sites, the floating pens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so even in this rationale they're using to open the closed zone, they pose the question, we want to resolve the issue of whether the closed zones are responsible for our seafood trade deficit. You could take every fish in the closed zone, it wouldn't close that deficit.
Right.
It's been there. And the longliners were not catching their quota and had not been, I believe, about 15 years. They were landing mostly juvenile swordfish, and the primary impetus for closing the zone was the international organization said, U.S., your commercial longliners are landing most of the juvenile swordfish. Stop it. So the closure was put in place. Now they're going, gee, I wonder if that's responsible for the seafood trade deficit. No, it's not.
No. And if you want to make up that $14 or $15 million, make the fishing good enough that 5 more millionaires want to buy big sport fish boats. There, you
That's
just
right.
made up the different star economy. Okay.
It's such easy, it's crazy. I mean, and to ask the question, gee, closing waters to this gear for 20 years, we don't know whether it, generated any conservation benefits. I mean, that is the most ludicrous. That's like opening a savings account and having money go in each year for 20 years and then go, gee, I don't know whether this has really been beneficial. Let's open up and spend it all and see.
Yeah. We'll close it and then we'll see. Yeah, I like it. I'm going to tell you, if they want the recreational support, they've got to keep it sane and they've got to keep it things we can understand. And right now, what we need in our fisheries management more than anything else is balance. You can't protect all the sharks and all the Goliath grouper and all this stuff and without it being a detriment to the other species.
Right. There has to be some common sense,
right.
In all of this. And I see, we're not working on this issue a whole lot, but I see the South Atlantic Council has Dolphin Wahoo Amendment 10, I think, coming up again soon. So for those, comments are taken through, I think, the last week of this month. So be sure and check if you're interested. But you're right. We are not the enemy. Our fisheries do more to generate jobs and economic returns to the nation than all the commercial fish that are landed. I mean, we all want to eat seafood, but you have to look at the gear, the selectivity, and we know recreational fishing in South Florida along the whole coast and mostly in the Gulf generates more. So why are you going to try to kill it with net pen aquaculture and by letting the long lines in?
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree with you more.
For each of you who are listening and your desire to keep fishing, I really need you to be prepared to respond very quickly when we'll put out an announcement. We'll share with Rick, but when they put out their decision on the close zone, they said they'd put an option out. I need you to go online and send that letter. It's just a click, 2 buttons, and it's done. But we need to overwhelm both chambers where they're going, Jesus, Pete, what is this? People are all upset about sport fishing getting ready to be significantly diminished in South Florida, East Coast, and the Gulf.
Well, I tell you what, the recovery, the guys that are new to sword fishing do not understand how bad it was in the 90s after we crashed it. And they just don't, they weren't here and they don't see it. Take my word for it. I have seen it in the late 70s, early 80s when it was incredible. In fact, I can still remember a study that said that there were more broadbill swordfish off the coast of Florida than there were sailfish, which was mind-boggling to me. And
it is.
And we crashed it. We completely crashed it to where you couldn't get a bite. And then we brought it back through the banning of these long lines in the EEZ, and we can't let them back in, Ellen. We got too much at stake, and we've worked too hard to get where we are.
Oh, I agree. I say every hair follicle in my head is tested by this issue. I've been beating my head against the wall with them on this, and they smile and they go, but the data will be helpful. It's only like the data you need on how many bodies did you kill. Yeah, that's what you'll have, but you won't have anything positive to help industry, the fish species, and the ecosystem.
Well, I love you dearly, and all 3 of my hair follicles agree with you 100%. and I look forward to talking with you soon. Thank you so much, Ellen Peel from the Billfish Foundation.
You're most welcome. Take care of all of your hair follicles.
I will. Thank you, dear. Bye-bye. Now, let's get back on course, and let's check in with Stuart, Florida, and see what Captain John Earhart has to say to us. Tell me what's going on down in Stuart, Florida.
Fished offshore today. Sounds like it's good fishing all around. Pretty easy fishing, too, right out front of the inlet. Guys were catching, 4 to 6 sailfish. Most of that was on live bait, kite fishing, slow trolling with mylar dredges. Some guys trolling were catching a few sails, but it sounded like the better action was kite fishing with the live baits, as it usually is this time of year.
Can you catch live bait right now, or are you just better off buying it?
Sporadically, we have been able to catch sardines, a few thread fins here and there, and then some cigar minnows, and obviously blue runners. Pretty prevalent this time of year. It's just really getting the smaller ones so that you can catch, all sizes of sailfish. Because if you got a giant blue runner on there, you may raise 4 or 5 sailfish, but they just might be able to chase that thing down and eat it. So I try and have the smaller blue runners or sardines. Those work really well too.
Gotcha. That's outstanding. What's going on besides sailfish?
A lot of cobia on the reefs this week, a lot of snappers. We've been catching some groupers, but we've been releasing those, obviously, as season's closed. Tons of Spanish mackerel at Peck's Lake. So, I mean, if you want to get out in the ocean, but you don't want to devote all the work and time and effort to get those sailfish, a nice, easy trip this time of year, you just hang a right outside the St. Lucie Inlet and look for a pile of boats, throw something flashy with a little bit of wire on it, and you're going to catch as many mackerel as you want till your arms get sore.
Hey, John, have you ever fished with those they're almost a giant sabiki, those Spanish trees?
Yeah, I've used those. When the Spanish mackerel are really thick, I'll throw those out. Every one will have a Spanish mackerel on it.
So you're done in a hurry pulling that thing, aren't you?
Yeah, 5 casts and you're limited out.
That's right. That's exactly right. I wish we could regularly catch them small enough to use for sailfish. They'd probably chew them up if we could keep them alive, wouldn't they?
Yeah, that and blue marlin for sure. Nobody really fishes for blue marlin out front, but they do catch blue marlin sporadically right out in front of the St. Lucie Inlet. So they are around. You got to use a bigger bait, and you got to be willing to put the time in to target them.
Yep. Anything going on inshore?
Inshore's been pretty steady this week for pompano. People have been catching limits of pompano around the St. Lucie Inlet, and then up on the sailfish flats, drifting those sandy bottom areas using goofy jigs. Guys are anchoring up around the St. Lucie Inlet, fishing pompano rigs with fish bites or sand fleece. That's been working really well. There's been some bonefish mixed in, a lot of bluefish, some Spanish mackerel been coming in the inlet on incoming tide, and then obviously, plenty of sheep's head in the river right now. So snook fishing's been okay. The water's been kind of cool, so you've been having to soak a bait a lot longer to get a bite just because, they're a little more lethargic this time of year with the colder water.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Well, that sounds good. Sounds like a good week of fishing. Now, is Operation Sailfish, is that done or is that going on right now?
I think it's still going on. I did see a bunch of sport fish boats running around today. I'm not following it religiously, so I can't say for certain, but I do think it's still going on.
All right, Cap. Well, I appreciate it very much. We'll look forward to talking to you next week.
Yep, I'll talk to y'all next week.
Now let's see how many fish have pushed south by checking into Miami and the mayor of Miami Beach himself, Captain Alan Sherman. How are you, my boy?
Rick, I'm good, man, and fishing is good as well. Why don't we get right into it?
Let's go.
So we've had some really nice weather, It's cool, but not cold, and the winds haven't been strong, so pretty much anything you want to do right now, you can. In the bay this past week, we had bluefish and mackerel. They were biting really well, and there was a lot of those juvenile kingfish in the bay as well. And we were catching them on hard plastic lip plugs and chumming with some live pilchards. The fish were skyrocketing.
Ooh,
it was like
pretty.
The old days. So that's the inside. Going offshore on the reefs, there's been kingfish to 20 pounds, blackfin tunas, because we've had some overcast days, bonitas, a lot of bonitas, and then see what else they've gotten. A few dolphin, they're kind of scattered, and they've been in all different depths, so it's not like you can really target them right now. And then there's been a few wahoo and quite a few sailfish. Not tons of sailfish, but enough sailfish around where you're getting more than 2 or 3 shots at them a day.
Good.
And they're live baiting for them, fishing under, live baits under a kite.
Mm-hmm.
The bottom fishing on the wrecks is still doing as well as it was the last month or so. Still getting a lot of vermilions, a lot of yellow eyes. And then there's been a lot of almaco jacks and amberjacks, and these fish have been anywhere from 10 to 40 pounds. More so the bigger fish being the amberjacks and the almacos being 20-pounders. A few yellowjacks mixed in on those artificial reefs, and a few cobias are starting to show up. And then some big muttons are coming off some of these wrecks as well. This past week, one angler, young guy, Philip David Steinberg, he had a 44-pound bull dolphin.
Ooh, that's a fine one.
Followed a squid bait that he had intended to catch a swordfish on. As the bait was being retrieved back to the boat, the dolphin followed it to the surface. They threw another bait to it. That dolphin scarfed it down. Beautiful fish, big bull dolphin. The same angler had a couple of really large barrel fish out in that same depth. That's anywhere from 1,600 feet to 2,000 feet. That was a pretty nice catch, too, to see two of those big barrel fish like that. And the reason the guy was out there like that is the sword fishing's been really good during the daytime in those depths, and they're catching fish 200-pounders and bigger, and they've been biting pretty good. So coming in closer to shore, like today, we fished the patch reefs. We had cirro mackerel, black groupers, mutton snappers, mangrove and yellowtail snappers. So we had plenty of action on the patch reef. So you can see there's plenty of fish to be caught. You just got to get out there and give it a shot.
You know, I hope a lot of people down there don't mistake that cirro mackerel for a Spanish mackerel and throw it back. There's a lot of difference in the way a cirro tastes and a Spanish taste.
You know, it's funny. I mentioned that to the anglers, you know, and they both agreed that they much more prefer the cirro over the Spanish or the king mackerel.
Mm-hmm.
And I do agree myself. I kind of compared it with a wahoo. It's not the same, but it's a little more similar.
It's similar, and I think in its own way, it's every bit as good as a wahoo is. I'm a big cirro fan. Well, Alan, it sounds like your winter's ticking along quite nicely. Is your water temperature a little cooler than it was this time last year?
So that's the whole key to all of this. We finally, you know, after it feels like 100 years, we're getting 2 cold fronts a week.
Right.
And we haven't seen that for a long, long time. You know, it in the past 2 or 3 years or even further back, it was one cold front and then you'd wait 2 weeks for the next one. So this is more typical weather, more normal weather. And what it's doing is it's keeping our temperatures stable. They're cooler for sure because it was 67 degrees in the bay and it was 70, 72 on the ocean side. And that's where it's supposed to be, but hasn't been most winters because of the lack of cold front. So it definitely perks up our wintertime fishing for sure. And, you know, the whole key to that is not getting the big winds. And when you're only getting one cold front every couple of weeks, you usually have a northeast wind blowing hard for many days. And now we're getting a lot more west winds, northwest winds. And it just is a much easier wind to fish off of because they're not blowing 100 miles an hour. They're blowing 10 miles, 15 miles an hour. And it does make things a lot more easy.
Yep, I agree. And I'll be fishing again tomorrow, and I'll be in my fall weather suit again tomorrow because it's going to be in the high 30s. And let me tell you what, after hanging in the closet for 2, 3, 4 years, my foul weather gear is going, boss, I need a break. How about if we don't fish for a few days?
It's going to be needing to be replaced here soon. You're going to wear it out. But yeah, it's in foul weather gear myself today. And it was only in the 60s outside. So, but I'm a southerner, man. I like it warm. That's why I'm down here in Miami.
We call that a heat wave up here. Thank you, Captain Allen. We appreciate it as always, brother.
All right, Rick.
Now, y'all ain't going to believe this, but we're going to go down to Alamorada, where I hear a rumor that the Broad-Minded has caught another monster sword, their second one of this year. Is that true, Captain Nick Stanzik?
We got lucky. We caught a 352-pounder yesterday. It was a beautiful fish.
Woo! That's a big one. My goodness, that is a big one. How deep were you?
Just shy of 1,600. And, there's been a lot of reports the last 2 weeks up and down the coast of Florida. There's been a lot of big fish caught from that 200 to almost 500-pound range. I heard of one 600-pound up north a little ways. So there's some big ones out there right now.
My goodness, for people who want to catch a fish of a lifetime, that surely qualifies. Did I hear that fish was a pumpkin?
Yep, it was really orange, and that fish was one of the hardest fighting ones we caught in a long time, and took a little longer than usual. We spent over 4 hours on it, but
wow,
for a fish that big, I still do it again. But I did fish on Friday, and it was we didn't catch any swordfish Friday. We caught some queen snappers. That's how it is sometimes. You're swinging for the fences, but when you connect, it can be well worth it.
I would say so. Absolutely fantastic. You say the fish fought almost 4 hours. Did he jump?
Yeah, he made one incredible jump about an hour and a half into it, and I knew he was over 300 there. He was just over 350. That was a good fish.
That's a great fish. That is a fish of a lifetime. That's fantastic. What else are you hearing? Is your sailfish bite going on?
There's just a few sales around. The Endeavor, Captain Hunter today, they caught 4, and Jimmy caught 2, but there's just been a handful each day. So it's not red hot, but there has been a lot of kingfish around. A few big ones, too, if you get the bigger baits. Dauntless had a fish up to 35 pounds today, so that was good. And, my Uncle Scott on the catch today, he had 5 swordfish today, so he had an incredible day.
Wow.
Nothing big, but, that's as good as fishing as we can see. It kept a couple for dinner, but nothing over about 75 pounds.
I see. Okay. Well, it's nice of him to weed out the little ones for you so you don't have to mess with them.
I'll take anyone I can get.
I'm with you on that, Cap. Well, that's great. Are you hearing anything from inshore at all? Is your water cold down there, or what's going on?
It's pretty chilly, but we went in the backcountry one day, or more in the bay, I guess, towards the Gulf of Mexico. We caught about 25 Spanish mackerel. I hadn't been back there in a long time. I went with my buddy Bean. His name is Brandon. He's becoming a captain here in the next month or 2. He's waiting on his paperwork. But it was fun. We used the fly rods, we used ultralights, and I think we had 25 Spanish mackerel up to 5 pounds. So that was a nice change of pace. And there's been some snook and reds, too, I saw some pictures of.
I see. Oh, good deal. All right, Cap, as always, we sure do appreciate it. We look forward to talking with you next week.
Sounds good. Have a good one.
Thanks, Nick. Now, let's swing over to the West Coast and see what's going on in Southwest Florida with Snook Stamp Charters. Check in with our buddy, Captain Greg Stamper.
We've probably caught 300 pounds of trout this week, Rick.
How about that?
I can't complain. I
No.
cannot complain. Even today, I just got done. I'm on my way home as we speak. I told my clients, I said, listen, we're gonna start here. We're going to stop at this spot. We're going to fish for 30, 40, 50 minutes. And after we catch 50 trout, we're going to go after some redfish and other
Wow.
things, okay? And they were good with that. So that's been the echo sentiment of what we've been doing this week. You know the gig that I've had in the last year, what's been dealt down here, and the trout were the last things to show back up. So I'm just so happy right now to be able to go back into some of my old stomping grounds in Estero Bay and out in the front and some of the areas I fished in the past and had great success with. But I appreciate it a lot more these days, especially because these fish, they're in that stage where they're anywhere from 15 to in the low 20-inch range, Rick. And I know that another year that it's going to be a lot better too. So it's good to see that.
It's funny. Remember the old song, "You don't know what you got till it's gone"?
Yeah.
You guys haven't gone through what you've gone through with the red tide from a couple of years ago. I think you probably really appreciate your fishery now. But Greg, I got a question I got to ask you, and I ask all the trout pros this. Where do they go?
I do believe trout don't go far when they're happy. So I think in general, trout probably have a pattern that may go 4, 5, 6 miles from the 0 point, the middle, and that's kind of their range, what they like to do. Just like us as fishermen in those areas, they learn the patterns, they learn the tides, they know when and where, and when the little crabs are coming out, and the shrimp are flowing, and et cetera, et cetera. So I don't think they go too far, but I do believe, and Rick, I think we've talked about this before, that trout they're very sensitive to water quality, and you can tell a lot about what's going on by what happens and when it happens with trout, because those were the first to leave when things got bad, and they were the last to come back as things got better. And I believe that they're a good way of looking at it, because honestly, catching trout is not hard. It's fun. It's something normally you would do with kids and people who want to have a lot of action. And so with that said, you look back and the fact that now we're starting to see these huge numbers. I mean, if I wanted to, I could probably have caught 150 of them today, which would have been like no big deal in the past. So it's nice to see it, but I believe that's a very good barometer what is going on, and are things getting better, are they going worse? First thing to leave, last thing to come back. That tells you something, Rick.
But it tickles me because our guys up here go through weeks with no trout. And they're like, oh, my gosh. Oh, something's happened. Oh, it's the end of the world. Oh, my gosh, we've ruined the trout. Oh, we got to have more regulations. We got to have this. We got to have that. Oh, hold on a minute. I caught 57 yesterday. And they just all of a sudden show up. And when they are gone from their haunts, our guys, I tell you what, our guys up here cannot find them. I mean, I don't know if they go offshore. I don't know if they go super deep. I don't know what they do. But, boy, we go through periods where you can't find
They
them.
do go offshore, Rick. A lot of my nearshore folks that fish on some of our wrecks and reefs, when things are slow, they throw jigs and they catch quite a few trout out there. It's kind of weird this year, though. They're not getting the numbers that I am in the back. So we had that little brush with the red tide, which, by the way, Rick, I've seen zero of this entire week.
Wonderful.
So that's even better news. It seems like what we did have went south. Unfortunately, there was some winds and currents that kind of kept it close to the shores. So down south, there may be some stuff still down there, but we've had these back-to-back cold fronts, which really weakens its ability to do what it's trying to do. Now, the redfish in our back bays, for me, this week, after we caught a bunch of trout every day, we decided let's go for things that are a little harder. So we did a lot of redfish, and we tried for snook a couple times. Snook fishing is just really not happening unless you're up in like the Caloosahatchee River, places where it's a little bit warmer and it's shallower and the bottom darker. Then they've done pretty good up there. Our snook fishing this week was just, nothing crazy. The fish we did catch, Rick, were 22, 23, 24. I don't know. We might have caught a few bigger than that, but for the most part, they're just little guys, which is fine. But the redfish that we caught this week were big. They were all big. Again, we talked about this last year. I never caught small redfish, and I don't know because of the closures and the big ones are just kind of bullying these rat reds out, and then the rat reds maybe are going way up in the rivers and the creeks. But the fish we caught this week, Rick, were all upper slot and some of them over. So I'm thinking we might be going right into the same pattern again. And I hope I have the same report for you in another 2 months. Because if that's it, then it's not going to stop. It's going to continue to happen for a while.
Have you heard much on pompano, Greg?
So we did do some pompano this week. We caught a few here and there. They were all small, under the 11-inch slot at the fork, which is what ours are here. Is that what you have up there? I don't even know.
I believe so. Same? Yep, 11-inch to the fork. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So the fish we caught, they were all small this week. I think they took a little they did a little detour. They're kind of in the MIA area right now. I don't know what they're doing, but when they do show back up, Rick, it's going to be full speed. People want to catch them. They're good eating. They're fun to catch. And I'm guessing probably in another week or two, we're going to see tons of pompano again. I didn't skip any fish in the back bay this week, which always tells me if they're going to be in some of the areas I know. And the ones that we caught while trout fishing were all small. Now, to transition a little bit, we have our visitors that we've been waiting for starting to show up. So maybe they're all hanging out together. We've got those big, ugly black drums coming. They're coming out from up north. These fish have been caught on some of our local reefs and our wrecks that are all near shore. They're not in the back bays. They're anywhere from 20 feet out to about 30 feet or so. And sometimes if you're lucky and you have a tower boat or the water's clean, you can see these big muds when they're moving down the shores. Well, the shores. When they're moving in 25 feet of water, you see these muds. And if you know which way the current's going, you obviously know which direction they're going. These fish are anywhere from, I'd say the small ones are 15 pounds. The big ones are probably in the 40 to 45 pound range. And they're starting to move their way in, which last year for me, it was late February, early March when they poured into our passes and inside our bays near shore. And I got to tell you, when you got somebody who just wants to go back day fishing and have fun, and you put them on a 40-pound black drum one after another, after about number 3, Rick, they're pretty much done.
They're done. Yep, that's some big uglies there now. That's the offensive lineman of our fishing community. You're absolutely a big ugly fish. It's a lot of fun to catch. Greg, we appreciate it so much. Please tell me we can talk with you again next week.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, Rick. I'll talk to you later. Tight lines, and don't forget, we're going to be doing some permit fishing, you and I, this year.
I'm ready, buddy. I've never caught one. I'm ready. Thanks, Greg.
Tight lines.
Now, remember, Greg Stamper and all our action spotters are brought to you each and every week by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Tournament Master Chum, the best chum on earth. By Nosara, Paradise Fishing, your dream vacation. And by Young Boats. You want the finest in flat spay and offshore hybrids? You need to check out youngboats.com.
You know what Yamaha Outboards love? The genuine formula and consistency of Yamalube marine engine oils. Outboards are subjected to punishing conditions like high loads, salt, and humidity, a mix that automotive oils can't handle. Yamalube full synthetic and marine performance formulas are certified to protect against friction and corrosion for reliable performance every time. Find Yamalube marine oils at your nearest Yamaha Outboard dealer. Locate them at yamahaaoutboards.com/dealers. Yamaha, reliability starts here.
Hey, Raj, being consistent is the mark of a quality product. If you've been Florida's #1 chum for over 10 years, there's got to be a reason.
For 10 years, Tournament Master Chum has lived up to his name. That's why more tournament pros insist on Tournament Master than any other chum. It's the only chum with Menhaden milk mixed right in. That means it gets the scent out faster and deeper than any other brand of chum. It comes in a grind size for every species from kingfish to catching bait. Your fishing time is way too precious to use second-rate chum. Bring the action to you by insisting on Tournament Master Chum. It's worth every penny.
When you're ready for the finest in custom-made flat spay or inshore-offshore hybrids, you are ready to meet the Young family in Inglis, Florida. For over 21 years, the Young family has built custom boats one at a time for every type of fishing. Nothing can sneak up on a flat quite like the Gulf Shore flats boats, and I've never fished a better hybrid than the Young 24s and 27s. Rob Young is a naval architect who takes tremendous pride in each and every build for each and every customer that wants their boat custom built exactly the way they want it. Is it time for you to move up? Are you ready to own the finest boat built? Then you need to visit the Young Boat facility in Inglis, Florida, or check them out online at youngboats.com. Let's jump up to the west central part of the state and find out how our buddy Captain Ray Markham is doing. Raymond, are you with us?
Yes, sir. Well, I tell you, the wintertime trout fishery seems to be in full bore. There's going to be some meetings coming up here pretty shortly, within the next couple of weeks or so, for discussion on that. We're going to see what everybody else thinks about it, but it's kind of looking pretty good, but we shall see.
Yep.
Snook trout maybe will open. We will find out.
Looks like you guys might be back in business on keeping fish, huh?
I'm kind of hoping so. I look at the reports that I keep getting and the fish that I'm catching, and it's very promising. Let me put it that way. I'm seeing a lot of small fish, but for the same token, right now we're seeing a lot of 18 to 23-inch fish. So, it's managed to escape through that first year series. The 12-inch fish are the first year from last year's spawn, and the other ones are from the year before. So those are some fish that managed to get away from that red tide. So I think we may have some that are kind of migrating in from the Gulf. The summertime, we usually have good Gulf fishing around Egmont Key. There's a pretty good amount of grass, turtle grass and whatnot right around the island, and it gets loaded with trout. So, I just got to think that there's places out there in deep water that these fish hang, and it's just a matter of time when they decide they're going to start moving it. And typically, I find the bigger fish March and April. So we shall see what happens in a couple months. But right now, inshore, it is just firing up with sheep's head.
Really? Good deal.
It doesn't matter what the weather, they're going to bite. And they're there, and they're getting fat. It's sometime in the next month or month and a half, around the new and full moons, particularly the full moons, those fish are just going to be going bananas around here. Everybody I'm talking to is that they're looking for fiddler crabs. They can't really find many fiddler crabs, and a lot of the places they don't sell them. So I just tell them go searching around the mangroves. Little black mangrove crabs are just as good as fiddler crab, and sometimes you can find them, sometimes you can't. But just about everything eats them.
Do you get jelly balls over there? Looks like a half a basketball. Yeah. It's a jellyfish, but it's a real hard shelled one that has little bitty short tentacles on it.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't remember seeing anything like that. Several years ago, we had some of the real bad ones. The ones with long tentacles.
Yeah, these don't sting. These don't sting at all. And the reason I ask is we have saved many a day on sheep's head when we ran out of fiddlers. if you will dip up one of those jelly balls, you will find a crab, just like you said, like an oyster crab, like oh gosh, I don't know what you call them, but I mean, I think it is an oyster crab. But anyway, we have found many of those inside of a jelly ball, and you can just pull them out. You don't have to hurt the jelly ball, and you could, sheep's head love them. They'll bite them just as fast as they will a sand flea or a fiddler crab. It's crazy.
Well, then maybe the next time I'm fishing on the East Coast, I'll start looking for jelly balls.
Just scoop him up. He'll have an oyster crab in him. I almost promise you.
There are some small crab type lures that work real well on them.
Really?
And I may do some of it. Yes. There's several of them that are out there. They're about the same size as a fiddler crab. I think Savage Gear makes one, and maybe Live Target, and maybe a couple others. I think maybe Berkeley makes one. And DOA makes a small soft shell crab. But most of those will catch sheep's head and permit and pompano and black drum and a lot of things. The big black drum are really moving in. They're all up around the bridges and whatnot. And I say big, but probably starting at the small end at around 10 pounds and the upper end maybe 40 pounds or so.
That's good fish.
So,
that's good big uglies right there.
Definitely a scrapper. And of course, the offshore guys, when they can't get out offshore at a long distance and they want to make a quick stop out, 30 to 50 feet, they're catching all kinds of hogfish. Still.
Oh, good deal. Good deal. I was really worried as hog fishing became popular that we would crush the stock in no time. It doesn't seem to be happening, does it?
I don't know that for a fact because I don't think there's been any studies done on it in the last 2 years. And the last time they changed it when they did some changes on the Atlantic side, but nothing on this side over on the Gulf Coast, apparently the stocks are in good shape over here. But the fact that people are targeting them now and having quite a bit of success, I think you're probably looking at whenever they do the next assessment, it's probably one of those things they're going to look at.
Well, they need to. 1,000 people a day move to Florida, and it seems like they all want to fish, Ray. So we need to keep up with stuff like that. There's no doubt. We appreciate it so much, Ray. Please tell me we can talk with you next week.
Captain Ricky, it'd be a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you, Raymond. Now we're going to jump all the way out to the Panhandle because you can't leave Florida without going through Pensacola. That's where Captain Tyler Massey is. Tyler, are you with us?
I'm here, Rick.
Good deal, buddy. Tell me what's going on out there. I know it's chilly.
Yeah, it's a little chilly. We've had a few cold fronts, more wind and whatnot. Again, not much has changed. We're in our typical wintertime pattern. So bridge fishing inshore is pretty decent. We're catching black drum, redfish, sheep's head, that type of thing around there. Just using live baits for the most part for that, whether it's fiddler crabs or live shrimp. Just the Carolina rig fishing around the pilings has been our best bet for that type of stuff. Also inshore, still some speckled trout hanging around in the canals, deeper bayous and that kind of stuff. So, it's been pretty consistent, nothing too red hot, but just you go out and catch some fish, every day is decent weather, but, nothing to write home about, but decently good fishing.
Yeah. Has your shop's been able to keep fiddlers there, or are most of the guys, what are they using for bait for sheep's head and drum?
It's been hit or miss on the fiddler crabs at the shops, but there are a few places you can get mud crabs and fiddler crabs just by walking on. So some people have been doing that. They've had plenty of shrimp in stock, but like you said, it can be they can get kind of temperamental and only want the crab type stuff. So they get them in once a week or so, and then they run out in a day or two. So a lot of people are probably stocking up, keeping them at the house when they do get them in.
Most of the rest of the state has, almost everybody I've talked to this evening has talked about very good black drum fishing. Are you starting to see fish up to 40 pounds yet, or are you too far north?
No, we definitely catch some big black drums like that. Fishing the bridges for sheephead, we're using pretty light tackle and small hooks and that kind of stuff. Well, every once in a while you hook into one of them giant black drums and you're fighting it for 45 minutes or an hour.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take very long to figure out what you got. But, it's a very common bycatch here for us. And we're also starting to see some big schools of black drum in the Gulf side on the beach, too. Those are a lot of fun. You can throw them a live shrimp or a half a crab, and you see those schools of fish, and usually they take pretty good.
Gotcha. Well, that sounds fantastic, Tyler. That's a great report. I'm assuming everything offshore has been pretty well shut down for you guys now.
Yeah, not too much action offshore. everything's just about closed except for vermilion snappers and our scamp grouper is the last grouper we can keep right now, and those will close at the end of the month this month and be closed through March. So not too much offshore. It's a nice catch and release fishing. Amberjacks bite good this time of year, snappers on the wrecks and that kind of stuff. But if you're looking for something to take home, not too much action out there.
Gotcha. Okay. Tyler, we appreciate it so much. I hope your ocean stays calm, and I hope we get to talk to you next week.
I'll be here, Rick. We'll see y'all.
Our thanks to Tyler Massey for a great report on the Pensacola area, where he said the sheephead and drum have started. Let me tell you, there were sheep's head all over the state. Good news on the drum fishing, drum up to 40 pounds almost everywhere. And let me tell you, the pompano are here. Boy, you get down around, let's say south of Cape Canaveral, and the pompano fishing is extremely good. I know that Captain George Labonte sent me a picture this week of a whole box full of pompano that he and his charter had. Sail fishing's good. It's good in Stewart. It's good down through Miami. And how about Captain Nick Stancic with another monster sword, 356-pound, 4-hour fight. What a great fish that is. It was great to listen to all the trout stories down in the Southwest and coming up through West Central. It just seems like an unlimited number of trout. And what a great rebound from all the red tide that those guys have had. That's just fantastic news. You head on out toward Pensacola, and it's sheephead and drum around the piers and the pylons for the bridges. They've got lots of sheephead and drum. That's been their best fishery. They don't get much wintertime bottom fishing. Only vermilions are open, and it takes a long time to get far enough offshore to catch them. So all in all, things are rolling along mightily this winter. I got to tell you, I thoroughly enjoyed talking with Ellen Peel, and we had a great talk about bill fishing in Florida, how we've got to take better care of the fish we're letting go, partly because the sharks are getting so bad. We've got to release sailfish while they're still hot. That means no bringing them in the boat, no hero shots, get them resuscitated, get them on their way while they're still strong enough to get away. She's also worried to death about the federal fisheries managers allowing the longliners back into the EEZ off the east coast of Florida and through the Florida Straits. We do not need that. And when that decision comes out, we're going to need everybody on deck to get the word out to their legislators that no, we do not need longline boats back in the EEZ. The buoy fishing system's working fine. The recreationals are having a ball. There are new boats being built every day to go sword fishing. That's where the answer is for our economy. That's where the answer is for the future of our fisheries. Nothing against commercial fishing. We're always going to have it. I will fight for a commercial fisherman's right to commercial fish until the end, but he's got to do it with gear that makes for sustainable fisheries. So anyway, back to our fishing. It's been a good week, been a cold week. I tell you what, we're having a colder winter in Florida than we've had in a long time, and we're going to be back next week with another Florida Sportsman Action Spotter podcast. Our podcasts are brought to you each and every week by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Tournament Master Chum, the best chum on earth. By Nosara, Paradise Fishing, your dream vacation. And by Young Boats. You want the finest in flat, spay, and offshore hybrids, you need to check out youngboats.com. Now, if you've got a question for any of our action spotters, hey, do you wonder about what bait Nick Stancic is using for all these giant swords? A lot of guys want to know what Ray Markham's catching all those big trout on. He'd love to handle your questions. So just let us know on Facebook, or you can text me at 904-334-8808, and I'll make sure that we get a good answer for you. Hey, until next week, I'm Captain Rick Riles, and we will see you on the rip.